Good evening, folks. We are here for Wednesday Night's Undressed at Conroy's Emporium, where you can have everything that your heart desires. That's as far as I'm going to go with the rest of the...
Did you wash your hands, Conroy?
Well,
tasty.
So, guys, Jeremy is not here today. I'm Louis Orlando, and I'm going to substitute for Jeremy. With our panel today, we have Donna Kane-Swan, Kathleen Taylor, and Ivo Ivanov.
Yeah. So no Jeremy today. He's teaching. Is he teaching in
He's not
Kansas
teaching,
City?
no. He just is taking a very onerous course, and he's exhausted.
Okay. He will not be excused.
Yes. Maybe we can do this so well that we can then tell Jeremy that he's out.
Yeah, I doubt that. I doubt it.
I wouldn't mind all the adjectives in the beginning.
Well, he did say something
Mind
about
the loss
he wasn't
of.
supposed to find out we can do it without him.
I understand. No,
Yeah.
we can't do this without him. We kind of need Jeremy here.
Yes.
All right, so once I found out that I was going to be kind of leading the group today, I sat around and thought about what I wanted to start off with talking about. And the thing that I came up with was social norms. I've been watching people recently, not just the teenagers at the high school from about 300 yards away. I've been watching lots of people,
Yeah.
and I
Tell us
have... Well, yeah. So I've been just kind of noticing that we do some strange things sometimes, and it seems to be out of convention, and I'm not really sure that it makes sense in lots of cases or in most cases that we do some of the things we do. For instance, I wrote all of this to you guys and started with the question that was most interesting to me at the time: why does green mean go? And Donna had a perfect answer for that just a few minutes ago.
Well, it originated with the railroads. They're deciding that obviously they needed a way to avoid accidents, and it actually starts in the very beginning of the railroads. And everybody agreed that red was a universal color for danger, blood, gore, fire, bad.
That's the explanation right
Danger.
there. Red,
Yeah.
bad.
Red is bad.
Red bad. And they
Except in China.
They originally had thought of white as a go color,
Right.
And then, and I'm afraid I'm not sure whether this action happened in the UK or in the US, but a gel fell out of a red light, and it was white, and there was the hideous and horrible train accident that happened as a result, which is what made them move to green, which showed up really well at night, and they ended up going with yellow because it did not show up like any of the other colors that they had chosen. But to be fair, lots of people came up with lots of systems with different colors. Took a long time for us to finally settle and everybody agree, red, yellow, and green.
Fascinating. I had no idea. That's really interesting. Then, but also at this point, I think also the positioning of the lights indicates to stop or to go. For color-blind people, obviously they can't tell if it's a green or red, and just the light on top for them means red, and then on the bottom it means go.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that green light has entered our vocabulary. Green light this project means go. It's become kind of an idiomatic expression.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
And it's come from the people who industrialized and needed it first. And from there it spreads to others because they
actually,
have to match.
I think the first working traffic light that we would recognize today as a traffic light starts in Detroit. For
Right.
that very
Detroit,
reason.
cool.
But, it's a long history, and they tried many things. Lots of things failed. And the UK actually almost mirrors our exact development. I think we tried some things of theirs, they tried some things of ours. So,
But outside of the specific example, you were talking about social norms and how, I mean, you chose this as an example
Yeah, this
of
is just-
why green means green. I mean, then this is the history of it. But what did you have in mind when you poked that topic of the social
Really
norms?
just kind of, my thought actually was that we have some pretty diverse backgrounds here at the table. And I was curious to know what some of you guys find as interesting, either being here or having spent some time abroad. So what I'd like to do is something that I think we probably should have done before, is to get maybe just a brief synopsis of like who you guys are. Like Ivo, you're probably known well from Jeremy's podcast as having grown up in Bulgaria, but I don't think we've ever talked about that explicitly. Like, what's your timeline for getting here? How long you've been in America, that kind of thing.
If you're referring to Jeremy's radio show, this is one of the best hidden places to hide and not be known. You know, so
oh, that hurts.
so I doubt I'm known by the radio show. But no, just kidding aside.
You've been here how long?
I come from Bulgaria. I've been here for a quarter of a century, 25 years. But I came here when I was already 24.
Right.
So
Let me see. I've got to add that.
We're all doing the math right now.
49. So, there's no escaping the accent. If you didn't come here when you were a kid, the accent stays with you. So that explains it. But speaking of norms, I had certain expectations when it comes to social norms when I first arrived in the United States. For example, we were always told United States are very liberated in terms of... they're very liberal, very open-minded.
Gotcha.
That's the impression
Not true.
we had in Europe, especially in Eastern Europe, growing up behind the Iron Curtain. I mean, we grew up.
Can I interrupt for just a sec? What about that whole streets paved of gold thing? That wasn't part of your mythos, right?
No, it wasn't.
It was. It just got all picked up before you got here. Sorry about that.
We got.
Did you base it on television?
Well, we got the Hollywood radiation.
Gotcha.
We had access to Jim Henson and rock and roll, and musicals. And I think I've seen the musical Hair, the movie directed by Milos Forman, maybe 100 times. I was obsessed with the United States, with the Western culture, just like most of my generation young people.
Gotcha.
And when I arrived here, I was in shock because one of the first things I noticed was that the magazines, the adult magazines, in the newspaper and magazine kiosks in New York City, where I lived the first 6 months, the women had black bars in front of their breasts.
Right.
So I
born
was
that
in
way.
shock because in my country there was none of this. Extremely open-minded about the human body, and to tell you the truth, entire Europe very, very relaxed about it, and sexuality too.
Yeah, but you're confusing perhaps an open-mindedness in thought with sexuality, which you've got to be forgetting the most basic principles that we were founded by Puritans, and we have never, ever changed.
Yes, and I was not prepared for this, and I was not aware of the historic implications of this. So I'm arriving here and I'm looking around and I'm in shock. I'm thinking, is this really, am I maybe in some other country? Because from everything I've seen, from MTV and the Western culture and Hollywood, I was expecting a really open-minded attitude towards sexuality, towards the human body. In let's say you're in Germany at that time, you see giant billboards of naked women, and people were not worried about the kids. People were not worried about the kids getting their minds polluted. Now I guess now there's a little bit of of censorship when it comes to this, even in Europe. But back then there wasn't. So there was a little bit of a social norm that surprised me. Not everything surprised me. A lot of things were the way I expected them to be.
Right.
But this one particular thing was very surprising to me. And also the involvement of religion on almost every layer of social life is also very surprising to me, which I grew up in kind of an atheist, obviously, society because of communism. Our religion was communism, but I had never seen anybody go on Sunday, being dedicated a Christian, going every Sunday to church, and it was a very, very surprising.
And again, I'm assuming it's because you were not aware of who exactly founded. And I don't mean discovered, or I'm not arguing about that. I mean the first people to land here. I'm assuming you were not familiar with their religious beliefs, and that we have built the country ever since on that. And probably every day since that, it's that push-pull of that religion.
No, I wasn't. And I'm interested for you to tell me, as an American who ended up going to Muslim country, although secular, Turkey. But
Not anymore.
Right. But when you were there, when you ended up there, you experienced a completely different culture shock and different social norms. So it'd be interesting for the panel and the listeners to hear what your experience was back then.
Well, actually,
Introduce it though. You were raised in New York.
I am both New York and New Jersey.
Okay, New York
I
and New
was
Jersey.
born in Patterson, New Jersey. Please do not, anyone who knows Patterson, New Jersey, please don't hold that against me.
Live near there.
At the time that I was born, it was like the only major hospital in
Right.
about everybody was born in Patterson, New Jersey, which, in case you aren't getting the implication, it's a pit. Actually, my parents, when they moved to New York, they moved outside of the city to a town called Patterson, New York,
Right.
different spelling. And my grandmother almost keeled over at the news, and her response was, "Oh my God, you're moving to a slum!" And my mother had to convince her, completely different state, completely different spelling. But yes, I'm actually equally New Jersey
And New York.
And New York.
Okay.
And I did my doctoral work at KU, which is from there that I went to go teach in Turkey. And actually, my first reservation about going there was going there as a Jew. A good part of my family, including my oldest stepsister, they live in Israel.
Right.
Been there many, many times, as some of you know, and there is a constant push-pull in that country. I don't need to explain that. That's a given. And so, knowing that I was going to a, 99.9% Muslim country, I was nervous about going there as a Jew. I didn't advertise it, but I didn't deny it either if I was asked. But you know what? My students were wonderful. I had the opportunity to be in one of the more liberal places, because whenever you're in a university town, and it really doesn't matter, I don't think, what the hell country you're in, university towns are almost by definition a little bit more, I'll go with open-minded, a little bit more open to discourse.
Definitely got looser girls.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Never mind.
No.
I did hear that.
I'm somewhere in the back. I'm thinking you said looser girls.
Yes.
And no, that does not happen in Turkish society. No.
Gotcha. They haven't met me.
And at the time that I was there, that it was in the 90s, and you're just beginning to see that tiny, tiny pull towards more concentrated Islam. Because when Ataturk was alive, and for many decades afterwards, and I'm assuming everybody knows who Ataturk was.
He transformed the Turkish society.
The founder of modern Turkey, the father of modern Turkey. It was a cult of Ataturk. I mean, they really
and
kept
thank God.
his thank God. They really kept his ideas alive. They, practically say their version of Pledge of Allegiance to Ataturk, in the way we say it to the flag. But that was beginning to wane a little bit while I was there. Still present, still very much there, but just beginning to wane. And in subsequent visits that I've made there, I've noticed them moving further and further away, more antagonistic towards me as an American, which I didn't experience at all in any way, shape, or form. But the cultural things that I found were just kind of amusing. I mean, nothing that, sent me for a loop or into shock. I mean, I don't drink anyway, so the majority of the country doesn't drink, although I did find that my students ran to the nearest bar as soon as class was over. So
You didn't take that personally?
No, of course not. And is that your phone again?
No, that was not mine.
This is
Okay, someone's phone is going off.
It's in the bar.
I also found that there are a lot of wild boar in Turkey, which they're not allowed to do anything with, other than possibly shoot dead if they're bothering something and leave them there.
Can we shoot dead wild boars in this country? I'm thinking
Maybe
of a
not
couple
now.
in politics.
Yeah.
Well, just on a side note, like you've heard about the
I'm
wild
sorry, I
boar
interrupted.
problem that they have in Texas and Florida right now, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh,
so,
yeah.
So if we can't shoot them right now, I would expect that within the next year or two, they'll be begging people to shoot
Oh yeah,
every
but you
boar
can
they
shoot
see.
them
Okay,
in those
perfect.
states. You absolutely they have big hunts.
Yeah.
yeah. But
Sorry to
I had Canadian friends there. Obviously, I was surrounded by expats, and a couple of them were Canadian. And one of their students had shot them. He had a farm and shot them a wild boar. And we had a big party, and they obviously were thrilled to have pork, and they made it up all kinds of ways, and then announced to everyone in the room, because the room was multicultural. Just letting you know, there is pork. That's where it is. You'll want to stay away from it. Within 2 seconds, it was gone, and all the Muslims had eaten it.
Really?
Yeah.
So social norms can be broken.
I was stunned. I don't have an explanation for that. I doubt that when I get the feeling from people now that wouldn't happen today. But at the time, I was like, okay, I had a really different impression of how this would go down. And that wasn't it. But then I get strange things like I'd wait for class by sitting on the cement steps, and my students would come up screaming at me in Turkish, just jabbering away. You'll die of a cold. I'm like, what are you talking about? You're sitting on a cold step. You'll die of a cold. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. That's not how you get colds. And no eating ice cream in the winter.
The same way in Bulgaria.
And
really?
they bundle their children up to such a degree that as a stranger, I wanted to just start ripping clothing off babies because they were just bundled up to within an inch of their lives.
Yum.
But I think the funniest thing, and I don't know if this is a cultural norm or not, but as you all know, we have a particular hand gesture for "fu." I'm
Yeah.
assuming
I'm
I
not
cannot
familiar
say
with
the word.
this.
Yeah.
Oh,
Can you demonstrate?
But what would be the point? No one
Oh,
can
how
see me
rude.
doing it. And I think as Americans, we all thought that the world shared our gesture of the middle finger.
Right.
Yeah.
And one of my fellow teachers went into his classroom and was hard to demonstrate on the radio, but he was essentially snapping his fingers and then taking the fist and putting it against the palm. Snap, fist, palm. And his students finally had the courage to go, please stop doing that. And he couldn't figure out what they were talking about because he wasn't required to speak Turkish. He was there to teach English, and that's how he conducted his classes. And he was finally led to understand that what he was essentially saying was a
obscene.
version of "fu" or he was doing something very obscene.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
it's a little. It's always the little things.
And Kath, how about you and your experiences with culture shock and social
Well,
norms in other countries?
Yeah.
Well, I got to know first.
Yeah.
How did you meet the Brit?
I switched husbands in midstream. I met my first English husband in Kansas City, where he came for
Gotcha.
summer job.
Okay.
27 years later, we got kind of tired of each other. And we were living in England at the time.
Right.
And so I found this Brit.
Gotcha.
And I brought him back with me.
So how long were you in England altogether?
I was there for 14 years.
14 years. Gotcha.
Yeah.
So
And
long enough to become like really, really.
Yeah, yeah. My voice even took on some accent, and it's hard to get rid of when the people around you have accents. I found that the norms over there were largely similar to here, but with some marked differences. They have to survive with a lot of people on a small island.
Right.
Okay? And I think a lot of it is explained from that. The needs of a society determine what the norms become. You don't go up and become close friends with somebody right away or just because you happen to live next door to them. No, You have high fences,
Well,
and
that's
it
New York
takes a
City.
long time.
Same thing.
Yeah, too many people in a small space means you protect your privacy more. That same sort of explanation can happen with all sorts of norms.
Right.
In the wide open West, you'd probably become best friends with somebody if you rode
If you
20
hadn't
miles
shot
and
them
that was the
first.
first person you'd seen in 3 weeks. You know.
Yeah.
So,
That is
Actually,
good.
it's kind of interesting because I was directing a play years ago about people in the West around the beginnings, and just prior to the Civil War, and I'd done a lot of research. It was women who had gone to find husbands, and I'd done a lot of research, and one of the things that became very clear in that research was suicide was the number one cause of death, especially among women. And you just have to be in western Kansas for a while to kind of understand why. It was loneliness, isolation, not seeing anyone for weeks, months at a time.
Yeah. So...
Okay, so I got a couple of just weird things that we do that I just kind of wanted to bounce off the group and see what you guys thought. First of all, we grow lawns here.
Yeah, I think just about everybody considers that to be inane.
Everybody, as in everybody outside of America?
Yes.
Outside of America, yes.
No. You have lawns in every little bitty tiny... But they don't call them a lawn; they call them the garden.
Yeah.
And that's their lawn. They all have gardens.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. If you have the soil, you grow the grass, and you cut it with your manicure scissors because that's all you need, really.
But you don't waste thousands and thousands and thousands of gallons of water growing grass in a desert.
No, that's a uniquely American thing. That is a very American thing.
And that comes from having settled in the East and have gradually moved west. And as they moved west, they wanted to take everything with them that was special to them, that they were passionate about.
Is it specialty, or is it merely just to prevent soil erosion?
No, these were things that were special to them. They brought their foods.
I'm talking specifically about lawns. The fact that we have lawns.
Oh no!
All
if
over
you're
the
talking
country.
if you're talking about in desert, you'd be much better having a rock garden with a bunch of cactuses in it.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Okay, a couple of things that are slightly more. One that's not quite so gross, and then one that I think everybody's going to think is gross.
God, I love gross topics.
Well, not that gross. Okay. Does anybody here have alcohol? Yes. So, alcohol's a poison.
Yes, it is.
But we all drink it.
And
we drink it to be social?
We consider wine a poison, too?
In a way.
In a small amount.
Many things are poisons. Sugar is a poison.
Anything taken to extreme.
Sure. So, if it's not going to kill you and it feels good to do it, most people will do it.
And that's pretty universal.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
not something that we
Most places.
give up willingly.
Many drugs are poisons, and there are drugs that are illegal here, but that are legal in other countries.
Better living through chemistry.
Yeah.
Alcohol is a complex issue because some people are more susceptible and some societies are more susceptible to abusing it. For example, the Scandinavian countries, because of the weather, because of the long winters that limit your abilities to do a lot of things that socially the abuse of alcohol is widespread.
Yeah,
so
way
even
worse.
to this day, countries like Finland and Norway and Sweden have limits on what you can purchase.
You do realize, though, that the U.S. in the 1800s, early 1800s, was considered the most drunken country in the world.
When was this?
Didn't know that.
Around 1830s.
Yeah.
We have a very strange relationship with alcohol in this country.
So, not trying to be funny. I hope it isn't taken the wrong way by anybody. Does that coincide with any of the Irish migrations?
Huh.
Well,
No, it actually, I cannot think of off the top of my head when those major migrations were, although I'm sure it probably did coincide with one.
Right.
But let's not limit it to them. No,
So it was in the 18th.
I mean, people would have stills back in the hills.
it was in the
and,
19th
that's-
century.
My grandfather. You know what? I didn't tell anybody my story. How I'm here, who I am. Okay, so I'm Louis Orlando. That's what Jeremy calls me. My name is actually Louis Walton. He just likes my middle name better, so I'm Louis Orlando.
Yeah.
Anyway, I am completely American. In fact, the only time I've ever been out of the country is with my buddy Ivo right here, who took me to Bulgaria with him for a month.
And Poland for a little bit.
And Poland for a little bit. But that was... Okay, so here's the weird thing I saw in Poland. Ivo and I are... I'm going to try to truncate this as much as I can. Ivo and I are on a plane, and the plane is being held up for some 4-year-old girl that is like 2 hours late for the plane. So we get to Poland, where we were supposed to make our connecting flight. But because the girl is 2 hours late, our connecting flight takes off without us, so we have to stay in the Warsaw Hilton.
Damn those 4-year-old girls.
Yeah.
Okay. So... we decide to just go, looking around Warsaw while we're waiting for the flight the next day. And we come up to this gypsy street performance.
A bunch of gypsies, yeah.
Bunch of gypsies just like out there. There's like 4 gypsies dancing, and there's little gypsy kids running through the crowd just trying to pick people's pockets. Like, I'm literally watching the dancers and I'm watching the little pickpockets. So I'm trying to watch the dancers, I should say, because I can't really see the dancers from where I'm at. I go and make my way to the front of the crowd just so that I can see these dancers, and they're doing a Native American rain dance. So, a little weird because they're doing a Native American rain dance to techno.
Completely wrong with headdress that would be considered highly offensive here. Inappropriate.
It wasn't a headdress. This was the most surreal part. They're doing a Native American rain dance to techno music, but instead of a headdress, they have angel wings with eagle feathers in place of the... So it looks like they're superheroes.
Uh-huh.
And they were pretending to be actual Native Americans. That was kind of...
The crowd that was surrounding
they ate it up.
Yeah, they were like all impressed that they were seeing like real life Native American bands. So I have pictures at some place where I took pictures of these
funny.
weird dancers. But they were making their money from people donating, and the little kids were making their money from picking pockets. So everybody was happy.
They had it was kind of
That is awful.
It was well calculated because
They were picking. Are you serious?
I'm 100% serious.
Okay, 'cause it sounds very stereotypical what you said.
it was kind of calculated because there we were in Stare Mesto, which is the ancient medieval center of Warsaw, and you have this medieval backdrop with these beautiful ancient buildings, and then you have Native Americans or people pretending to be Native Americans contrasting wildly with the backdrop, and people were mesmerized by it. I think they were just mesmerized. They weren't asking questions. They were mesmerized by the wild contrast between the foreground and the background, and they were just giving money away.
Really, where there was literally a pile of money like in front of these dancers as they're going.
Yeah, it was an interesting experience.
I think it's a great scheme. I think we need to get a group together who can pretend to be Morris dancers. You've ever seen Morris dancers? They're English, peculiarly English, and they're all men, and they dance around clicking sticks, and it's all to do with Stonehenge and that sort of. It's just. It would be so easy to fake, and people here would eat it up.
There's a Stonehenge on stage in danger of being crushed by a dwarf. Do you remember this?
That actually is based on a real story, except in the opposite.
Oh, really?
When he wrote the
script for Spinal Tap?
You're talking about Spinal Tap,
Yeah.
but they based it on a real story, and I'm trying to remember who the musicians were, Led Zeppelin or something like that.
Yeah.
But don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
But he had trouble converting forgot to
From
convert
meters
from the
to-
metric to 2 inches,
Yeah.
and so when he submitted the plans and they showed up on stage, they couldn't fit them in the building.
That's outstanding.
Yeah.
Outstanding. We wanted to talk a little bit about an interesting twist on social norms that is happening right now in China. There's a company called Boya Life, and they've built a commercial cloning facility of epic proportion. We're talking about tens of millions, I think $48 million building that they built, and they are about to clone 100,000 cows next year. So 2016, they're going to clone 100,000 cows. Each next year, they're going to increase production, and in 2020, they're going to go towards 1 million cows a year cloned.
Why?
Because the consumption of beef in China is skyrocketing, and at this point there's huge demand for beef, high quality beef, and at this point there's such demand for burgers that they are, believe it or not, they're flying in giant 747s, millions of cows a year from Australia. So if you want to go to cattle class, you go on one of those.
Was in the seat next to me on the way.
Yes, a
I'm
giant
sorry,
cow.
They can't use cargo planes.
They converted 747s to cargo planes. They ripped the seats off, and they're paying crazy money. They're paying billions of dollars to transport these Australian.
Do they have stewards and stewardesses?
They need them. I don't know, but they need them. They need actual live cattle. They need the meat to be fresh.
Right.
So
Okay.
that's why they're doing this. So it's just a mathematical problem. They looked
so
at the
before long, they're
numbers.
going to need a lot more heart doctors as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we are talking about a facility that has gotten the science of it to a perfect place where they can produce commercially cloned animals. And the company, BioLife, is working together with some very reputable institutions like the University of Beijing, and they're working with a South Korean company, infamous South Korean company, who are currently cloning a woolly mammoth. Do you know how the process works? How the cloning process works?
They
Saw
had to
Jurassic
be
Park.
gestated inside the womb of another animal.
Yes, this is how it's
How
going.
in the world are you going to find one to fit a woolly mammoth?
An elephant, a living elephant.
I see.
This is how it works. You need 2 cells, basically, for a cloning to occur of a living organism. You need 2 cells. One of the cells cannot be a reproductive cell. So any cell, any tissue cell you take from an animal, and then with a with a microscopic, almost microscopic syringe, you will have to go through the membrane.
Sorry, I was thinking he was going to say a microscopic penis.
Yeah.
Well, similar.
Okay, so you go with a microscopic syringe and go through the membrane and go into the nucleus of the cell, where the nucleus of the cell. What's wrong with you, Donna?
We're trying to figure out where we
Thinking.
can find.
You have
Like,
you have a very
I can think of some donors.
you have a very strange set of fetishes. No. So
That's not a fetish.
that's where your mind is. So all the DNA material that you need is in the nucleus of the cell. So you extract it with a tiny syringe, and then you have
tiny
to,
penis,
Yeah,
yes.
tiny penis. Then you inject it into an egg cell. So you need 2 cells. One regular cell and one egg cell. And you have to extract the nucleus of the egg cell and inject the new nucleus inside with all the DNA that you need. So at this point, they put this in a culture and they stimulate it with electricity, and it grows into an embryo. And then they take that embryo and they have to put it in a womb. And it has to go through the entire term, and be born. But it's going to be 100% clone of the animal that the cell belonged to, that the somatic cell is the non-reproductive cell. So with the woolly mammoth, you ask, they go through the same process. They've discovered a perfectly preserved woolly mammoth in Siberia's permafrost.
Yeah.
They extracted, this South Korean company, along with some Russian scientists, extracted a cell, a somatic cell from the woolly mammoth, injected it into the egg cell, and they're going to have it grow into the womb of a living elephant. So this is the plan right now. Also, the same South Korean company is cloning pets, cloning dogs and cats, favorite family pets at the price of $150,000 a year. The company BioLife is also going to do this. They're going to clone pets. They're going to clone racehorses. So imagine American Pharoah.
They'll start the rules to
they will
ban
regulate
cloned
this, but
animals,
imagine exact replicas. Imagine the Kentucky Derby with 18 horses being American Pharoah, exact replicas of American Pharoah. So we are looking at a very bizarre
Actually,
situation.
if you had them all being exact replicas of American Pharaoh, it would then become a
interesting race.
A fair race.
Fair
again.
race. But then they're not going to stop there, because they're looking to graduate to cloning primates. And they're not shy about this. In fact, their executive director, Xu, he announced that they're going to look into cloning human beings. And he said that they already have the technology of cloning human beings. And he said, hey, morale changes, social norms change. That's his quote. He said, social norms change. For example, he said 20 years ago, gay marriage wasn't even, people didn't even think of this, and now it's accepted. He said maybe very soon it will be accepted that cloning human beings will be perfectly ethically okay. So he is
Norms
looking,
do change.
and he said, you have 3 choices as a parent. You can have the 50-50 choice, or you can decide, hey, I want my kid to be 100% from the father, DNA from the father, or 100% from the mother. So it's going to be a complete identical DNA copy of you if you want. So they're looking into this. There's a lot of moral issues. If you remember Dolly, the first mammal, the sheep, Dolly the sheep that was cloned in 1996, in England, it had very, very serious problems. They had to put the sheep down because it developed horrible diseases, horrible issues, and we can look at similar things happening to humans, human clones, and how ethical and how torturous this would be, and what it would be the survival rate.
Basically,
it would be very
planning
low.
on having, bringing to life people who they know are going to have horrible problems. Which, but norms do change as they point out.
But
so, the norms before would have been norms in privacy. Okay?
Yeah.
We would never have considered the intrusiveness of the government surveillance now. 20 years ago, our norms have come to accept it. We might come to think that that's acceptable.
Yeah, look what happened with food, with GMO. You know, it was unaccepted. Now, we just ate some GMO, probably.
Probably.
Well, we don't know. That's really the interesting question about GMO. Okay, so just curious, what is the discussion group's thought on cloning the cows for meat? I have an initial reaction, but my initial reaction
is emotional usually.
Mine is not.
No,
mine is
practical.
Is completely practical.
Right.
I'm very, very intrigued by the possibility. If the animal is cloned, do we look at the problems that you were just talking about with Dolly? Will those problems translate to a problem with the meat? And if not, then
it's all right.
Then how could this possibly be a problem?
Well, it's a good question, and with GMO, this means genetically modified organisms, living organism that we have altered, edited, or deleted a gene in that, and we are creating transgenic species doing this, right?
Well, that's one form of GMO.
Yes.
But that's generally what people think when they talk about, when you hear somebody say a GMO crop, they're specifically thinking of transgenic GMOs.
But how about the watermelon picture that I showed you last week? Guys, right now, we've been, for hundreds of years, we've been selectively breeding organisms.
Sure.
Selective breeding. So, the way scientists now research this is they look at the art from 400 years ago, specifically at still life art. And there's a famous painting right now of a watermelon that's been bisected for this to be painted for still life. It's a painting done 400 years ago, and I don't want to slaughter the name, so I wrote it down. The artist's name is Giovani Stanchi. He's Italian.
Spell that last name for me.
Giovani Stanchi, last name Stanchi. And this, in this painting, you see exactly what watermelons looked like 400 years ago. And it's shocking. It is shocking.
They weren't seedless, were they?
You will not recognize this fruit. Or, you know.
Oh, I see. Yes.
But what we...
Sections like an orange, or like a pomegranate almost.
Yeah, and what we did for hundreds of years, and what we've done with many fruit and vegetables, is we picked fruit that have traits that we like, and we bred them. The fruit that didn't have the traits that we like, we discarded them. And
That's
little
what I'm
by
doing with husbands.
Yeah, exactly.
So
So little by little, through selective breeding that I just described, we have watermelons now that look like what we eat right now. But you told me the same thing about bananas.
Right, yeah. The bananas are actually the same way. There is, someone posted a question, I believe it was on Reddit, where are the banana seeds? Why don't we see the banana seeds in bananas? To which someone posted a 200-year-old picture of bananas, and it was not something anybody at this table would want to eat.
Yeah.
Were the seeds on the inside?
The seeds are
black.
inside. Yeah.
They are.
Actually, if you look at a current banana, if you peel a banana and just look at the actual
Darker
fruit
bit
section,
right down the middle?
there's little dots, little black dots
yeah.
that just go down the section of the banana. imagine if the majority of the inside of a banana were
Cool.
these hard, black, inedible seeds.
Uh-huh.
And that is what bananas originally looked like. In fact, what we do now is we eat the clippings from a particular banana tree
Yeah.
that they have
I
basically
wonder
just
what a
grown
banana
over
nut
years.
tasted like.
Ooh,
We may have lost that.
that's true.
Yeah, but with genetic editing, I was thinking, and you tell me if you disagree. You probably will. Genetic editing and genetically modifying species, we're solving a problem that I think there's dialectics in solving that problem because it's simple math. We're looking at population growth that's unprecedented. We already have 6 billion people on Earth. We're looking at doubling in population very, very soon. Rapidly increasing lifespan and not enough supply of food. And we have to do this. I don't think we have a choice as a race. I don't know
Well,
if we
the
have a
initial
choice.
stages to my mind, aren't going to be any faster on producing beef. You have to use a cow to gestate, and there's not a shortage of bull sperm that I know
Oh,
of.
but they're...
But
yeah.
if you can selectively
Evo, do you want another? You got time for one more?
Sure, one more.
genetically modify it in order to create more beef on one cow,
Oh yeah, that's exactly what they're doing. For example, we are I don't know if you know, but we are consuming salmon that's been genetically modified. And what they did with this salmon, it's a company called Aqua Bounty. They got salmon, regular...
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt you for just a second here.
Yeah.
Do you just happen to know that this company is Aqua Bounty, or
it's just the name is so
familiar.
memorable. I
Okay.
saw it on the news, and it's just Aqua Bounty. It was a cool name.
Gotcha,
So
gotcha.
So
that's just a weird little piece of information to just have at your back pocket?
I felt it was a very, very cool sounding name for a company, Aqua Bounty, and so I remembered it. But what they did is they introduced a new gene taken from another type of fish into the Atlantic salmon, which triggered the production of growth hormone in the salmon. So this salmon, now that they've produced, is 3 times the size, and there's pictures on the internet, 3 times the size of a regular salmon. So if you go on the internet and look at a regular salmon and this salmon in the background, it's like a giant.
Uh-huh.
And that's what they're doing, producing much more commercially, genetically edited salmon. And it's approved by FDA, by the Food and Drug Administration, and those guys are strict. And they say, hey, this is absolutely safe. It's the real same meat.
You know what? I don't. It's not that I have a problem with it being safe. I mean, there may come a time when I am, but you've killed the flavor. I mean, look at what we've done to turkeys by making them a breast-heavy bird, or chickens. A breast-heavy bird, which they are not meant to be. You now have produced, birds with absolutely no flavor.
that's all right. They're being eaten by people with no taste.
Yeah.
Apparently, that's what we're becoming.
Do you like turkey?
Not particularly, no.
Just
but
like
I
Putin.
love.
Putin hates turkey.
Does he? Oh,
See what I did there?
Damn, Evo.
oh, somebody's going to
Wow, that was bad.
Yeah. Oh.
However, I love chicken, and for anyone who does, let's face it, we don't eat it very much anymore, just plain. Which you used to be able to do. A roast chicken plain was wonderful, and now you need gravy and and breading and sauces and.
But I don't know for sure that is a function of transgenics.
Oh, it
or-
absolutely is.
I don't know. One of my pet theories is taste buds, okay? We eat so many hot, horrible things, like that wing sauce that you've got there, Evo.
Yeah.
Which is too hot. It
Just
kills
read an
your
article
taste
about
buds.
that. No, I read an article that says the exact opposite.
Oh.
That actually awakens your taste buds. My
Really?
theory, my theory is actually that it is the diet of the animal. So the fact that it's not actually us eating tasteless food, it is that the chickens are eating tasteless feed.
that
Oh,
could
they
very
need
well
some
be.
bugs.
However,
Yeah.
I need to put in a little addendum. As it turns out, because this little fun fact was on the news last night, the majority of our taste buds are bitter taste buds, which is why we need salt and spices on our food so that we can actually taste
Three.
it. Otherwise, everything would just be, we would just register bitter, bitter, bitter.
Interesting what you said
we
about...
need, more sugar in things, more salt in things.
Life is bitter.
It's interesting what you said about the diet of the animal, because the famous Kobe beef, the real Kobe beef from Kobe, Japan.
Not Kobe Bryant.
No, Kobe Bryant. Kobe
No,
Bryant
no.
was named after Kobe beef. Did you know that?
I did know that.
I did
yes.
not know that.
Yeah, his father,
That's kinda weird.
Jelly Bean Bryant, he actually...
Well, he has a father named Jelly Bean.
That's his-
really?
That's his nickname, but he
He just wanted a more serious name for his son.
he actually went and tasted. He had Kobe beef for the first time, a steak, and he was so amazed. He said, "I'm going to name my son Kobe after this incredible steak." So that's what happened. But that cattle, you guys might have read it, but in Japan, in Kobe, Japan. They actually have people that massage the cows. They feed them
I wanna
special
be a cow
beer.
massager.
They feed them. They feed them
I was in
incredible
college.
diet and beer. They give them to drink beer, and they play classical
those
music.
women.
They play classical music in the, for the cows, and so they believe that this actually makes their meat taste better.
It probably does.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean,
Anything
when you
would,
guys-
other than the steady diet of corn all of our animals eat.
But I think that's
And
got something
hormones.
to do with it. I think that I mean, I've had a store-bought chicken and a free-range chicken at the same time. Like, I literally have a friend that raises chickens. She gave me one, so I cooked them both just to see if I could. I can taste a huge difference
Really?
just from the free-range versus,
Right.
free-range versus range. I don't know what the opposite of free-range technically
Probably,
is.
I don't know, manufactured.
Yeah, factory, farm
I want to
factory.
get one of those chicken huts that you can roll around your yard.
Just saw those. Like, I saw them in a magazine.
they got one
somewhere.
out in East Lawrence, and I went by and had a good look at it. Except that Jeremy already lived on a farm and raised chickens, and he says they're filthy animals. We'll never have them. So,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
they're absolutely
Yeah.
filthy.
I really don't know of any animal that isn't filthy, just to, throw that in. I mean, you smell pretty ripe after a few
Yeah.
days.
So,
Flamingos are very sexy.
They're not smelly. They bathe all the
So what about this notion that I don't have any information on it. I've only heard a little bit about it, about growing meat. There's a new technology where instead of actually
instead
like
of
a
an
petri
animal,
dish.
you grow
yeah,
meat.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know much about it. I've heard about it. I always felt like it was more of a rumor.
Do you know the price of a urine culture in the hospital?
What a strange question.
It is incredibly
Of course, who doesn't know
expensive.
that?
I
Can you
do.
imagine
I have
the
mine
price
taken every 2 weeks. I
of
know
an
exactly.
ounce of meat grown in a petri dish?
Well, the price will come down.
Whoa!
It would be expensive.
No, the price would almost absolutely come down. If we can get cheaper computers every year, then the meat would have to.
You can get
see a
cheaper
similar-
computers every month.
Yeah, see?
right. True.
Moore's law.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. It looks like my buddy Evo is ready to take off. So
Thank
we're
you
gonna
guys for
take
having
another-
me.
Thank you for showing up, dude. Go enjoy KU. Rock Chalk Jayhawk. And we're back. So Evo has taken off to go make sure that KU wins.
Now we can get serious now.
Now we can start talking about
Yeah.
serious stuff. Joining us in Evo's place is Brennan Conroy.
Well, hello there.
Hello. So we're going to take a complete shift in direction. We're going to just drop the conversation about social norms and food and all that other stuff. And we want to start talking now about Mr. Donald Trump.
And you got to see first this video, this YouTube clip called Darth Trump.
Darth Trump. Yes, I just watched it.
Aural not.
Uh-huh.
Aural, as in astronaut. And oh man, I think that video itself might spell the end of Donald Trump in the political race. It might, because
How so?
it's a clip of Donald Trump's actual conversations, not edited or anything,
Not taken out of context.
not taken out of context, mixed in as Darth Vader's voice in Star Wars.
All three of the
And
series.
the
so-
rest of the movie characters are saying exactly what they're saying. But what comes out of Darth Vader's mask,
Darth Trump.
Darth Trump,
Yeah.
is Darth Trump saying, I want to get a real smart general, smart, and not just smart, but I want to get a mean one, because I'm going to get mean and smart. And it's just hilarious.
Well, we've seen things like that happen. Like, I would say a large part of Obama winning the 2008 election was SNL's lampooning of Sarah Palin and making her look not very professional. That, I think, was a big
Making
part.
her look?
No.
Making
Actually,
her
that's
look
exactly the
less
question that I have.
professional.
No, that's exactly the question I have. Do you not think that it was the fact, notion, idea, I'm not sure what word fits best, but do you think that her unprofessionalism contributed to it at all, or do you think that it was the parody of her that was basically her undoing?
A combination of both.
Okay.
Like, she had to have the unprofessionalism in the beginning, but to have it amplified like that and put on a stage like that to ingrain it in
Right.
the American conscience, that played its part. That played a major part, I think.
Very much like Howard Dean's Scream
Yes.
Yeah.
derailed him.
Very
Right.
much like
But
that.
it wasn't
Yeah.
a parody. It was the fact that it was something that
Happened.
the
Right.
opposition could pick on to say, hey, this guy may not be the coolest cucumber under pressure.
Right.
And they could use that.
Which I still don't understand that.
It doesn't make sense it from a 30,000 foot vantage point. But could you say the same thing about Sarah Palin? Like, I'm being complete devil's advocate here for a second.
Okay.
And I'm saying I agree with Brennan. I think that the parody was really her undoing. I don't know that her demeanor was off-putting enough to the general populace that she.
Oh
wouldn't
my
have
God!
been.
Yes, it was.
And everything
think
that's
so.
happened
I don't
since
agree.
then
I don't agree
with
that
her
it was.
Yeah,
has just borne it out.
I don't think so. She's still
She
on the.
quit
she's-
as governor halfway through.
Yeah, but she was
done-
elected as governor.
Yeah. And she would have been
Lots
probably
of idiots
been
have been selected as governor. Lots of
indicted
incredibly
before she
corrupt
was over,
people have
you know?
been selected as governor. My God, that's a criteria for
Yeah.
nothing.
We're in
All right,
Kansas, for God's sake.
hold on. I have a comment from our audience.
Is this the Dukakis moment? Is this the Dukakis on the tank moment? In your opinion, is it? Or for John Kerry when he said he went out yachting?
Wait, are you talking about
Well-
her YouTube video? No,
Yeah.
because
Has Trump had that moment yet? The Dukakis on top of the tank moment.
I don't think it will be that video. Unfortunately, I think it needs to be something true and real.
I think
that
I
happens
thought it-
that we catch him doing.
Yeah, the
I
the
thought
parodies
it
come after
happened-
after the actual thing happens.
Right,
generally.
exactly.
a couple or 3 weeks ago. He had a 55-minute speech in which he pretty much ranted and raved.
Yeah, but
And I thought that was going to be it, but
no,
it
I
didn't
think
get
that,
picked
that,
up on.
that his comment relates back to what Brennan said
Yeah.
that I was trying to emphasize that there is almost an unreal component to what we eventually end up parodying or find disconcerting. In the case of Howard Dean, he screamed like a little scream of joy, and that seemed to be the thing that derailed his entire campaign.
Yeah.
Is it? And to that notion, this video could very well be the thing that
It could.
that derails Trump. But I agree with Donna in the sense that I would like it to be something more substantive, but I'm not really thinking that it has to be.
I would.
And I'm sorry, but I just don't think anything on YouTube. His appeal right now is to middle America, to older people, to hardcore Republicans with hate in their hearts. And I'm not saying that being a hardcore Republican necessarily means you have hate in your heart, but that seems to be who he's appealing to now. And those are not the people who are going to be watching YouTube videos on a regular basis.
Okay, so you said something I think is incredibly pertinent to what we're talking about, hate in his heart, which brings up the notion of name calling. People are constantly calling names. And the question that's on the news right now is Donald Trump a fascist? Not to imply for all the budding fascists that you have to have hate in your heart, but that's just where I see the transition coming in.
There's a lot of definitions of fascist.
And I'm always
Yeah.
kind of reticent to say things like that because I hear so much name calling in the news, and I never like doing it on either side because I feel it unfairly pigeonholes people. Like a politician, either side will do this. You will say, "Oh, that politician is X," and it's just an easy way to dismiss them.
However, hate in his heart, that's not name calling. That's to me, a statement of fact. You say that we're now going to, his idea is to ban all Muslims. That's hate. There is no other way around it. That is simply hate.
Which I will actually say I think that will be his Dukakis moment.
I hope so.
Mm-hmm.
I hope so.
Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about fascism. What is fascism?
There are so many definitions of fascism. It depends on whether you're looking at Karl Marx or Eco or
Umberto Eco.
Umberto Eco, and a lot of people have taken his tenets and decided that a lot of them apply to Donald Trump. Well, yeah, but there's a lot of other definitions that don't. What I was doing some reading on this today, and I think the final thing that I got out of reading over what is a fascist and does it apply to Donald Trump is that fascist is a word that has simply become an insult. You call somebody a fascist when you disagree with them, or mostly calling somebody a fascist means you're calling them a bully. Yes, Donald Trump is a bully. Doesn't mean he's the typical definition of a fascist. He might be. But that's what people mean when they usually call somebody a fascist.
And I would have to say that this is one of those hard questions because no, I don't think he's a fascist because he's showing whatever side, whether he in his heart agrees with it or not.
He's an opportunist.
He's showing whatever side. Right now, it's a hateful side, but he knows he's got a huge audience out there for that hate because there are a lot of people in this country right now who feel an awful lot of hate.
Sure. So whether he's fascist doesn't really apply.
If he becomes president, would it apply? I'm sorry.
Because in this country,
I'm going to change that question just a little bit. If he became president and continued to try to enact the types of policies that he has talked about up to this point, would he then be a fascist?
No, because to be a fascist, he would have no success. Fascism is not going to have success in this country. We have courts, we have branches of government, all of whom can pretty much say no. The president doesn't just get to do whatever he wants to, as many, many presidents have found out.
Fair enough.
But
when I become president, that's all going to change.
The phrase that we hear every 4 years.
Exactly. No, I actually... when you talked about this as a potential topic, I was curious because I didn't understand how Donald didn't fit the mold of a fascist. But I think
scary,
you're right.
But he's not fascist scary. Because he's not actually widely going to have an organization coming out and beating people up. He might have encouraged his crowd to beat somebody else up, but that's isolated.
Right.
He's not going to have thugs out there trying to overthrow the government, trying to beat up opponents of themselves. It's not going to happen that way.
Can I ask a question, though?
Yeah.
What about if he necessarily wants to have that happen, but even though if he can't enact it?
Wants to have an organization
going
around...
I will agree there, but you had mentioned how a lot of the reforms he was going to have would not get through the courts. Would simply wanting them maybe make him a fascist?
Oh. Whether he's in his heart a fascist or not?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I
think he doesn't have
I'm
much
a fascist.
of a heart. It's a little bitty black thing that's been, got dollar symbols all over it. So the question doesn't arise.
Wait, are we talking about Donald Trump or me?
No. For any politician, would there be a case where they would take the position, yes, I am a fascist, this is what I want? Or has fascist just become such a pejorative term that in the middle of the Donald Trump thug camps, we would be still arguing the question of whether or not he's a fascist?
I think...
go on.
I was just going to say, I don't think we'll ever see someone say that simply because of Germany and Italy in World War II.
Yeah. And far-right organizations, the Ku Klux Klan, they're all very pleased with Trump. And the more clear they make it that they're pleased with him, the less likely he is to actually be president.
I don't know. You keep mentioning fringe groups that don't keep mentioning. You have mentioned fringe groups, but that's almost the minority of people who are just really loving on Trump right now. There is, we're talking middle America. Just thinks
he can bring down the Republican Party. I don't think he's going to bring down America.
Yeah. I mean, I could definitely see him, what you said, if you don't mind me mentioning this, I think he could definitely bring down the Republican Party simply because he is the stereotype. He is the embodiment of the stereotype of what the Republican Party has become. And he is the easiest target for a Democrat to point for and go, this is what you're voting for.
Yeah.
I don't see that. I see that I'm sorry, this is only my opinion, so
Absolutely.
this is not
Absolutely. I understand.
this is not a learned opinion. This is just kind of what I see. The thing that makes Donald Trump work is that he is exactly that stereotype. He's a rich white guy that doesn't really care about the little people. As long as he's making money, as long as he's creating jobs, as long as he's got his hot foreigner wife, he's happy. He's living the American dream.
No,
it's okay. And I think that the country is built on this notion that if you try hard enough, you can achieve everything that he has done. It is exactly the argument that was used to institute slavery from the absolute origins of the country. Why did so many poor white people go along with slavery? Because if they got rich enough someday, they could have slaves too.
Yeah.
So for me, Donald Trump is not a thorn in the side of the Republican Party. He is the beacon to which if you look at Donald Trump's numbers right now, his appeal is greatest with non-college educated
But he's
Republicans.
He's going to have real difficulty attracting over 50% numbers.
Yeah.
It's just it's a two-party system we've got here, right?
Right. Uh-huh.
But both parties really are run by the elites
Right.
of the party.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't like the candidate, they generally get rid of them. They
Right.
choose their own elite
Right.
candidate.
Right. If he's not Skull and Bones, he's out.
Yeah, right. He is messing with the two-party system because there are so many people who are fed up with the direction of their own personal
Either way.
lives in the country. And therefore they're unhappy with both major parties. And that's why he's got popularity. But I don't think that, while he might mess up the two-party system by destroying the Republican Party specifically, I don't think he's going to take the country.
No, I agree. I agree. I just don't think that he is. I don't think that the Donald Trump that we have seen thus far is going to radicalize the Republican Party. I'm seeing murmurs of it.
Yeah.
But
if the Republican Party had been a little bit smarter than they are, they would have incorporated some of those ideas already, and they were too far removed from it. And so some of them are moving toward it, but probably for them it's too little too late.
I have a theory as to why he's popular, and I'm sorry.
it's the hair.
No, because no one would vote for that hair. Not even the brother of the fox who that hair is.
Yeah.
I think the reason he is popular is because it's kind of like a sneak thing at the same reason, apart from his policies, a reason why Bernie Sanders is as well popular. He is unabashedly not a politician. That is the only reason. It's the one thing in people's minds that is pushing him towards it, and the lack of political correctness as well. Even though even though some of the things he says are horrible, I should say. People kind of like that because it's so removed from what it has been.
From the political doublespeak that
And I'm not agreeing with anything he says because I think half of it is absolutely disgusting. But
Also, the polls may be wrong. You remember what happened during the World Series run for the Royals, right?
They won.
Right.
Yeah. What happened for the All-Star game?
We loaded the polls.
We loaded the polls. Kansas City voted hundreds of times
Overwhelmingly,
each.
yeah.
And all of the people who were doing that voting, including me, thought it was hilarious. We were sticking it to Major League Baseball.
Right.
Okay?
I know
That
what
is
you're getting at
what
here.
they're doing with saying they'll vote for Trump. They're sticking it to the politicians.
But don't make the mistake of thinking that they won't continue to do that all the way through the primaries and up to the general election. We have Governor Ventura from Minnesota. We've got Governor Schwarzenegger
I know.
from
I know.
California.
I mean,
we could very, very easily have President Trump in
Oh, God,
another
don't
year.
say
I mean, I already have my thought who I am fairly certain is going to win the Republican Party. It's going to be Rubio.
Everybody
so, too.
says
Yeah.
to me that it's going to be Rubio, which is a little bit scary because he's obviously loony. But he's a good guy.
He's not as loony as Cruz.
Here's the reason I think he is, though. Part of it is because it takes away on the face of it, takes away one of the largest attack chips that the Democratic Party has had for, particularly with the potential lineup I've heard of Rubio and Fiorina.
That would be a strong.
That's the lineup that takes away one of the largest attack chips that the Democratic Party has had for years, that Republicans are racist misogynists. That you have a Latino.
To do that, they'd have to have a woman on the.
That's what he said.
Carly Fiorina.
Fiorina.
That's what I said too, as well.
I could think that is potentially the strongest lineup they could have, and probably what they will go with.
Cool. All right, it is getting late. The bar is filling up, so I am going to sign off. I'm just going to ask my esteemed friends if they have any parting thoughts that they want to share. And by the looks around the table,
As for social norms,
just anything that you want to share. Okay, that's perfect. All right, thank you guys for coming out. And Tom, thank you for letting us use your place. And thanks everyone for listening.